A retired Navy SEAL was driving home through a snowy Washington town when his German Shepherd suddenly noticed someone at an old bus stop. She said she was fine, but her hands were shaking. The buses were canceled, and the storm was getting worse. So he offered her something simple: a warm rescue room, a door she could lock from the inside, and no questions she wasn't ready to answer. But before sunrise, the dog who had led him to her collapsed on the floor. What happened that night would test kindness, guilt, trust, and the difference between saving someone and controlling them. And by the end, one small box left at that same bus stop would say more than any thank you ever could. If this story touches you, tell me where you're watching from. And please like and subscribe to help this channel reach 1,000 subscribers so I can keep writing more stories like this. By 4 in the afternoon, Leavenworth looked like a town sealed inside a snow globe. White roofs, golden shop lights, tourists moving along Front Street, with paper cups of cider held between gloved hands. Beyond them, the mountains stood blue and still, catching the last pale light of winter. Rhett Calder drove past all of it in his old gray truck, tired enough to feel the cold in his bones. He had spent 3 hours behind a lodge on the north slope, repairing a generator before the next front rolled over the ridge. His gloves smelled of diesel. A line of black grease had dried across one knuckle. At 49, his body still carried strength well, but it also kept records. Old shoulder pain, stiff fingers in hard weather, the quiet weight of things he did not talk about. Beside him, Kepler sat upright in the passenger seat. The German Shepherd was 7, broad-chested, black-backed, gold along the ribs and legs. A small notch marked the edge of his right ear, and silver had begun to show around his muzzle. He rarely barked anymore, unless there was a reason. Age had made him economical. Rhett turned off the radio before the weather alert repeated again. The pass was closing. Buses had been canceled. Anyone with sense would already be inside. Then Kepler made a sound. Not a bark. Not a growl. A low, uneasy note. Rhett glanced over. What? Kepler was staring through the driver's side window toward the old bus shelter near the road, down to the repair yard. The shelter was small, wooden, half buried in blown snow, with a timetable no one had updated in months. At first, Rhett saw only the bench. Then he saw the woman. She sat, folded over a canvas bag, both hands wrapped around it, as if it were the last solid thing she owned. Her coat was thin, faded blue-gray, made for rain rather than mountain cold. Snow had gathered on her shoulders and in the dark hair tied low at her neck. She was staring down the empty road like she could force a bus to appear. Rhett slowed. The last bus had been canceled before noon. He pulled over 20 feet past the shelter and angled the truck away so his headlights would not hit her face. He cut the engine but left the hazard lights blinking softly against the snow. "Stay," he told Kepler. The dog stayed, but his amber eyes followed him. The cold bit through Rhett's jacket the moment he stepped out. He walked slowly, boots crunching, hands visible, stopping several feet from the shelter. The woman looked up. Her face was pale from cold. Hazel eyes, a small mole beneath her right eye, early 30s maybe, not helpless, just exhausted in a way that made helplessness look close. "You waiting for the bus?" Rhett asked. "I'm fine," she said at once. "Automatic. Practiced." Rhett nodded. "Roads are closing. Last bus was canceled." "I said I'm fine." "I heard you." That made her study him more carefully. He did not ask where she came from. He did not ask why she was alone. Those questions could wait. A person freezing on a bench did not owe a stranger her whole story. A gust of wind pushed snow under the shelter roof. She tried to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear, but her fingers moved slowly, too slowly. Rhett noticed the tremor, the stiff hands, the way her shoulders were locked high, but failing to keep her warm. He took his spare coat from under his arm and placed it on the far end of the bench, not around her shoulders, not in her lap, just near enough. "I've got a rescue room by my shop," he said. Separate door. Lock on the inside. Heat. Phone. Bathroom. Search and rescue crews use it when storms trap them overnight. Her eyes sharpened. I'm not going to your house. I didn't ask you to. The answer stopped her for half a second. Rhett took out his phone, slowly. I'm calling Marlene Voss, community health nurse. She knows the room. I'm also messaging Deputy Mercer that I found an adult stranded at the old stop. That protects you as much as it protects me. She looked at him as if she was searching for the hidden hook in the offer. What's your name? He asked. A pause. Iris, she said. Iris Vale. Rhett Calder. Is that supposed to mean something? No. For the first time, her expression almost changed. Not trust. Something smaller. The possibility that he was not performing. Rhett called Marlene on speaker. A woman answered after 2 rings, her voice low and practical. Calder, if this is another tourist with tire chains on the wrong wheels, I'm off duty. Not that, Rhett said. I'm at the old Route 9 shelter. Adult woman, conscious, cold exposure. Says her name is Iris Vale. Roads are closing. I offered the rescue room. Marlene's tone changed immediately. Iris, can you hear me? Iris stared at the phone. Yes. My name is Marlene Voss. I'm a community nurse. Rhett's room has a separate entrance and an inside lock. I can meet you there in 20 minutes. Check your temperature and hands and help you make calls in the morning. You do not have to answer personal questions tonight unless there's a medical reason. Do you understand? Iris's jaw tightened. Yes, she said. Rhett ended the call only after Marlene confirmed she was coming. Then he sent Deputy Colin Mercer a short message, exactly as promised. When he looked back, Iris had picked up the coat. She had not put it on yet. She held it in both hands, thumb rubbing the worn cuff as if warmth itself might come with conditions. From the truck, Kepler gave another soft sound. Iris turned toward him. Your dog? Kepler. Does he bite? Not unless I've failed him badly. That made her look back at Rhett. He opened the passenger door and gave Kepler a small hand signal. The German shepherd stepped down into the snow, calm and controlled. He did not rush toward Iris. He came halfway, then sat, gold chest lifted, notched ear, catching a flake of snow. Iris watched the dog longer than she had watched Rhett. Kepler lowered his head slightly, then turned his body sideways. Presence without pressure. Something in Iris's face loosened. He knows how to give space, she said. Rhett looked at Kepler, then at the woman on the bench with snow on her hair and his coat in her hands. Better than most people, he said. For a moment, none of them moved. The town lights glowed down the road. A plow beeped somewhere behind them. Snow slipped across the asphalt in pale lines. Then Iris stood. Too fast. Her knees buckled slightly. Rhett's hand lifted by instinct, ready to catch, but not grabbing. Iris caught the shelter post herself and shot him a look that warned him not to make a thing of it. So he didn't. He opened the rear door of the truck. You sit in back, he said. Kepler stays up front. Door handle works from the inside. Phone's yours if you want it. Iris looked at the open door, then at the empty road, then at the coat. What happens in the morning? She asked. If the road's open, I drive you to Wenatchee or wherever your appointment is. If they don't, Marlene helps make calls. Your choice. She seemed to dislike that answer less than the others. Finally, she put on the coat. It swallowed her shoulders. Rhett stepped aside and let her walk to the truck without touching her. Kepler climbed back into the passenger seat, then lowered himself across the space between the front and rear like a living boundary, not guarding Rhett from Iris, not guarding Iris from Rhett, maybe both. As Rhett pulled onto the road, Iris sat behind him in silence, hands hidden inside the sleeves of his spare coat. In the mirror, he saw her looking at Kepler. The dog did not stare back. He rested his head on the console and watched the snow through the windshield. Rhett drove slowly toward the repair yard. He felt the old instinct rising. Take command. Make the list. Solve the problem. Carry the weight before anyone asked. He pressed his thumb against the old compass keychain hanging from the ignition until the metal edge bit gently into his skin. Not this time. This time, he would open the door. He would not decide where she had to go after walking through it. Outside, Leavenworth glowed warm and gold under the falling snow. Inside the truck, no one spoke. But the silence was no longer empty. It had 3 heartbeats in it now. The rescue room smelled faintly of pine cleaner, old wool, and machine oil drifting in from the shop wall. It was not pretty, but it was warm. A narrow bed sat against one wall with 2 folded blankets at the foot. There was a small table, a lamp, a metal cabinet with first aid supplies, and a bathroom door that did not quite close without a lift of the handle. Beside the outside door, a brass key hung from a nail. Rhett stepped in first only long enough to turn on the light and check the wall heater. Then he placed the key on the table. "This locks from the inside," he said. Iris stood just past the threshold, still wearing his spare coat, her canvas bag clutched close. Her eyes moved across the room the way people checked exits before they checked comfort. "Phone's there," Rhett said, pointing to the old landline beside the lamp. "Bathroom has clean towels. Soup's in the thermos. I'll be in the shop office until Marlene gets here." "You're not staying?" "No." The answer seemed to matter more than the soup. He set a tray on the table, chicken soup, bread wrapped in foil, a mug, a bottle of water. He did not tell her to eat. He did not ask when she last had. He just said, "If you need anything, knock on the shop door. If you want me gone, lock this one." For a moment, Iris looked like she did not know what to do with an offer that came with an exit. Rhett left before gratitude became something either of them had to handle. In the shop, the air was colder and smelled of rubber belts, snowmelt, and fuel. Kepler settled near the door that connected to the rescue room, not blocking it, just close enough to hear. Rhett noticed and almost told him to move. He didn't. Some kinds of guarding were not about suspicion. 20 minutes later, headlights crossed the yard. Marlene Voss came in carrying a canvas medical bag and wearing a burgundy parka dusted with snow. She was short, solid, silver-haired, and practical in the way of people who had seen too many emergencies become worse because someone tried to be delicate instead of useful. "Where is she?" Marlene asked. "Room." "Did you give her the key?" "Yes." "Good." Rhett almost smiled. With Marlene, approval was usually delivered like a medical result. Brief, factual, not to be celebrated. She knocked on the rescue room door with 2 knuckles. "Iris, it's Marlene Voss. I'm alone. Rhett's outside the door, and he can stay outside unless you ask otherwise." A pause. Then the lock turned. Iris opened the door a few inches. Her hair was still damp with melted snow, but she had taken off the coat and wrapped one blanket around her shoulders. She looked smaller without the storm around her, and somehow less fragile. Marlene did not step in until Iris moved back. "That soup yours?" Marlene asked. Iris glanced at the thermos. "Apparently." That's a better answer than no. The corner of Iris's mouth moved, almost unwillingly. Marlene washed her hands in the small bathroom, then checked Iris's temperature, fingers, pulse, and blood pressure with efficient gentleness. She asked questions without softening them too much. Dizziness, chest pain, numbness, confusion. Last full meal, any medication, any injury. Iris answered some, not all. Marlene accepted the blank spaces. Rhett stood outside, close enough to hear tones but not words. That was harder than he expected. His instinct kept reaching for the door. For action. For a problem he could hold in both hands and fix. Instead, he looked down. His compass keychain lay in his palm, the metal warmed by his skin. Kepler lifted his head and watched him. "Don't start," Rhett muttered. The dog blinked once, unimpressed. After a while, Marlene came out, and pulled the door nearly closed behind her. Mild cold exposure, she said quietly. No emergency transport unless symptoms change. She needs warmth, food, dry socks, and sleep. I've got all that. I know you do. That's not the part I'm worried about. Rhett looked at her. Marlene lowered her voice. She is not a rescue drill. I know. Do you? The question landed harder than it should have. Rhett looked toward the closed door. Behind it, he could hear a spoon touch the inside of the mug. A small sound. Ordinary. Human. Marlene followed his gaze. You can give her a room, she said. You can help her make calls. You can drive her when the road's open. But you cannot decide what her life should look like because you found her first. Rhett said nothing. Years ago, silence had been useful. In bad places, it kept men alive. Here, it only made Marlene wait. Finally, he said, I missed someone once. Marlene's face changed, but only slightly. She knew enough not to reach for the story. So now you don't miss anyone, she said. I try not to. That can turn into its own kind of harm. Inside the room, something scraped softly. The chair legs moving back from the table. The door opened. Iris stood there, with the empty mug in one hand. She had heard enough to understand she was being discussed, and not enough to know whether to be angry. I can wash this, she said. Rhett reached out automatically. I'll take... Marlene stepped on his boot. Not hard. Hard enough. Rhett stopped. Iris saw it. For the first time since the bus shelter, her eyes held something almost amused. The sink works? She asked. Rhett cleared his throat. Handle lifts first, then closes. I can manage a sink. I figured. No, she said, not sharply, but clearly. You didn't. The room went still. Rhett could have defended himself. He could have said he was only trying to help. He could have explained the habit, the training, the cold, the road, the way the world punished hesitation. Instead, he looked at the mug in her hand and nodded once. You're right. Iris seemed unprepared for that. Kepler chose that moment to rise. He walked to the threshold, stopped short of entering, and lay down with his back to Iris, facing the shop. Iris looked at him for a long moment. He does that on purpose, she said. What? Turns away. Gives people room to decide if they want him close. Rhett looked at the dog. Kepler's notched ear flicked. I used to work with animals, Iris said, quieter now. Vet clinic, before things got complicated. Marlene did not jump on the opening. Rhett forced himself not to. Iris looked down at the mug. I'll wash this. Then I'd like to use the phone. There's a housing office in Wenatchee I was trying to reach before the storm. Phone's yours, Rhett said. My call, Iris added. Yes, my appointment. Yes, my mess. Marlene's voice softened just a fraction. Maybe, but not tonight. Iris looked away first. Later, Rhett stood outside in the snow while Marlene loaded her bag into her car. Warm light glowed from the rescue room window. A shadow moved behind the curtain. Iris at the sink, then at the table, then still. She'll leave if you make her feel owned, Marlene said. I don't want to own anything. That's not the same as not doing it. Rhett watched snow gather on the sleeve of his jacket. From inside, the landline rang once as Iris tested the receiver, then stopped. Kepler remained by the door, his body stretched along the threshold, guarding without trapping. Rhett understood, not fully but enough, that the room's most important feature was not the heater, the food, or the blankets. It was the lock, and the fact that the key was on her side. Morning came bright enough to feel dishonest. The storm had thinned to drifting powder, and Leavenworth shone under fresh snow as if nothing in the world had ever gone wrong there. Storefronts glowed gold. A plow rolled down the main street. Somewhere, someone was already laughing outside a coffee shop. Iris stood just inside the rescue room doorway, one hand on the frame, watching the town wake up without her. Rhett was in the yard, clearing snow from the path between the room and the shop. He did not ask if she had slept. Her face answered that. Instead, he held up the landline receiver through the open office door. Wenatchee office opens at 9. I know, Iris said. Phone's ready. My call, she reminded him. Rhett nodded. Your call. That small agreement seemed to steady her more than another blanket would have. At 9, Iris sat at the little table with a pencil, a torn envelope, and the receiver pressed to her ear. Rhett stayed in the shop, pretending to sort socket wrenches while Kepler lay near the half-open door. The call lasted 11 minutes. When Iris came out, she held the envelope like it had become a map. They'll hold the appointment 3 days, she said. If I can get there. They need an address for mail. Marlene's office, Rhett said. Iris's eyes narrowed. She said it last night. Temporary mailing address. 30 days. You'd have to sign for it yourself. The correction mattered. Rhett could see it. Before Iris could answer, a bell chimed across the street. June Haskell had opened her bakery early. She was a round woman in a white apron, dusted with flour. Silver blonde hair pinned back with a red cloth band. She stood behind the front window, wiping the same clean spot on the glass, while looking straight toward Rhett's yard. Iris noticed. Friend of yours? Neighbor. That wasn't what I asked. Rhett glanced at June, then back at Iris. She owns the bakery. Watches too much. People usually do. A patrol SUV rolled slowly into the yard before Rhett could answer. Deputy Colin Mercer stepped out, zipping his winter jacket. He was lean, fair-haired, and calm, in a way that belonged to small-town lawmen who had learned not to make every situation heavier by arriving armed with suspicion. He removed his gloves before approaching Iris. Miss Vale? Colin Mercer. I'm checking, because Rhett told me you stayed in the rescue room last night. Are you here by choice? Iris looked at Rhett first. Rhett said nothing. Yes, she answered. Do you want transport to a shelter, clinic, or another location? Roads are still closed. Some are, not all. She studied him. I'm staying until I can reach Wenatchee. Colin nodded. Do you have your own ID? Some. Not all. Is anyone holding your documents? No. Has anyone told you that you can't leave? No. Good. Colin stepped back, as if the word ended the inspection. Then my part is simple. From across the street, June was still watching. Iris saw her again. This time her mouth tightened. Colin followed her gaze and sighed. June thinks worry is a public service. Is it? Not usually. The answer surprised Iris enough that she almost smiled. Inside the shop, Rhett pulled an orange reflector strip from a snowmobile trailer and found the wiring cracked where ice had split the casing. He muttered under his breath. Iris turned. That'll short again if you tape it like that. Rhett looked up. She seemed to regret speaking, but only for a second. Then, she walked closer, careful not to step into his space without permission. At the clinic, we used wrap like this around damp kennel wiring. Not the same job, but same problem. Moisture gets under the edge unless you seal it backward first. Rhett handed her the roll without comment. Iris took it, knelt by the trailer, and fixed the strip with quick, precise hands. No wasted motion, no performance, just competence returning to a place where shame had been standing. Colin watched from beside his SUV. June watched from behind the bakery glass. Rhett watched the least obviously of all. When Iris finished, the repair looked cleaner than his would have. Rhett clicked the light on. The reflector glowed. You've done that before, he said. I've done things. It was not an answer, but it was not a wall either. Kepler rose from the doorway and padded over with an old rubber ball in his mouth. He set it near Iris's boot, then stepped back. Rhett went still. Iris noticed. What? He hasn't brought that out in over a year. She looked down at the ball, then at Kepler. Instead of throwing it, she rolled it gently across the packed snow. Kepler followed at a slow walk, caught it, and carried it back with his tail, low but moving. The yard felt different after that, not fixed. Not warm, exactly, but less like a place where everyone was waiting for someone to make the wrong move. June finally crossed the street, with a paper bag in one hand. "I brought rolls," she said too brightly. Rhett's face closed a little. "June." "What? People need breakfast." Iris looked at the bag, then at the woman holding it. "People also need not to be studied through windows," Iris said. June flushed. Flour still marked one cheek. "I didn't mean." "Yes," Iris said. "You did." The words were quiet, but they landed. Colin looked down at his boots. Rhett did not rescue anyone from the silence. June's grip tightened on the bag. Then she set it on the workbench. "I'll try to do better," she said, stiffly. It was not enough. But it was more than Iris had expected. That evening, after Colin left and June's bakery lights warmed the snow across the street, Iris stood in the yard beside Rhett. "I don't want to be your good deed," she said. Rhett looked toward Kepler, who was lying by the shop door with the rubber ball between his paws. "I don't want to need you to be," he said. For a while, the only sound was snow sliding from the roof in soft sheets. Iris pulled the borrowed coat tighter around herself. "Then we should both be careful." Rhett nodded. Down the street, the town lights came on one by one, beautiful and watchful. By midnight, the town had gone quiet again. The bakery lights were out. The plow tracks on the road had turned pale under a new skin of snow. In the shop office, Rhett slept badly on the old leather couch, one boot still on the floor, one hand resting near the compass keychain on the table. In the rescue room, Iris lay awake longer than she wanted to admit. She had made the call. She had written down the appointment time. She had eaten, washed her mug, locked the door from the inside. Those were small things, but small things had become the only kind of proof she trusted. Near 3 a.m, Kepler scratched once at the shop floor. Rhett opened his eyes immediately. The sound came again, not the steady tap Kepler used when he wanted out. This was uneven, dragging. Rhett sat up. Kepler stood near the office doorway, head low, legs stiff. A rope of saliva hung from his mouth. His amber eyes looked unfocused, as if the room had shifted around him. "Kepler?" The dog took one step and nearly folded. Rhett was across the room before thought caught up. He got one arm under Kepler's chest, feeling the tremor running through him. The rescue room door opened. Iris stood there in Rhett's old flannel, hair loose around her face. One look at Kepler changed her expression completely. The guardedness vanished. What replaced it was sharp and awake. Did he eat anything? No. Think. He had his dinner. Nothing else. Iris scanned the floor, the workbench, the open space near the hallway. Then her eyes stopped on her canvas bag, half slid under the chair by the rescue room door. The zipper was open. Her face went white. She dropped to her knees and pulled the bag toward her. Receipts, socks, a folded paper from the Wenatchee office, a cracked comb. Then a small torn packet fell into her palm. "Sugar-free peppermint mints." She turned it over. The word was there in the ingredients, small and harmless looking. Xylitol. For a second, no one moved. Then Iris said, "Call an emergency vet. Now." Rhett looked from the packet to Kepler. Something hot and violent moved through his chest, not at the dog, not even fully at Iris, but at the shape of the moment. His family on the floor, her bag open, the wrong thing swallowed in the wrong room. Iris saw his face and took one step back. That was what stopped him. Not forgiveness, not calm, the step. She looked like someone waiting to be thrown out before she could be blamed properly. Rhett swallowed the first words that came to him. "What do we do?" he asked. Iris's breath caught once. Then she answered, "Don't make him vomit unless the vet tells you. Keep the package. Tell them the time window. Keep him warm. If his blood sugar is dropping, minutes matter." Rhett dialed with one hand and kept the other on Kepler's shoulder. A woman answered from Cascade's animal emergency, voice clipped and alert. Iris leaned close enough to give the ingredients, the possible amount, Kepler's weight, the symptoms. She did not cry. She did not defend herself. She became useful. The vet said to come immediately. Rhett lifted Kepler with a care that hurt to watch. Iris grabbed the torn mint packet, her coat, and the paper with the clinic address. Rhett repeated aloud. On the way to the truck, she stopped once by the rescue room threshold, looking at the bag on the floor. I didn't know, she said. Rhett opened the rear door. I know. It was not comfort. It was just the truth he could afford, while Kepler's body shook in his arms. The road to the clinic was black ice and snow glare. Rhett drove fast enough to be dangerous and carefully enough not to be. Iris sat beside Kepler in the back, one hand hovering near his ribs, counting breaths without touching too much. At one turn, the truck slid half a foot. Rhett corrected it before fear had room to speak. Left at the next light, Iris said. You know this clinic? No. I can read a map. There was no softness in it, but it kept them both from breaking open. Cascade's animal emergency sat behind a gas station at the edge of town, lit harsh and white against the snow. Doctor. Lena Arkwright met them at the door before Rhett had finished parking. She was lean, dark-haired, and severe in teal scrubs under a black puffer jacket, the kind of woman who did not waste sympathy when speed would save more. What did he ingest? Iris handed over the packet. Sugar-free mints, xylitol listed, unknown amount. Symptoms started maybe 20 minutes ago. He's 7, German Shepherd, around 80 pounds. Lena looked at Iris once, then at Rhett. Good. You brought the package. They moved Kepler inside. Rhett followed until a tech blocked him gently at the treatment room door. Through the glass, he saw Lena start an IV, heard words like glucose, liver values, monitoring. They were professional words, useful words. None of them made the waiting easier. Iris stood against the wall, arms wrapped around herself. I'll leave when it's light, she said. Rhett kept his eyes on the treatment room. No. Her face tightened. Rhett. No, he said again, quieter. Do not turn a mistake into a disappearance. For the first time since the bus stop, Iris looked close to tears. Inside the treatment room, Kepler lifted his head weakly, as if he had heard both of them, and was tired of being the reason people ran. Rhett pressed his palm to the glass. Tonight, he said. You remember everything you know. That's what he needs. Iris looked through the glass at the dog on the table. Then she nodded once. Not forgiven, not safe, not yet, but still there. Kepler made it through the first hour. That was how Dr. Lena Arkwright said it. Not gently, not cruelly, just accurately. He's responding to glucose, she told Rhett in the waiting room. That's good. But with xylitol, early improvement doesn't mean we're done. We'll monitor his blood sugar and liver values. He stays here. Rhett nodded because his voice was not ready. The clinic waiting room was too bright for 3 in the morning. White walls, gray chairs, a coffee machine that had burned its last pot into bitterness. Iris sat 2 seats away from him, holding the torn mint packet in both hands like evidence from a crime she had committed by accident. Lena noticed. Keep that, she said. Packaging matters. Ingredients, concentration, timing. Sometimes the wrapper tells us faster than the patient can. Iris gave a small nod. A few minutes later, Lena returned with a printed sheet and placed it on the table between them. Xylitol can be in sugar-free gum, mints, some peanut butters, chewable vitamins, dental products. Dogs process it differently than humans. It can trigger a dangerous insulin release and drop blood sugar fast. She looked at Rhett. Do not give human medication. Do not induce vomiting unless a vet or poison control tells you to. Bring the package. Call immediately. That part tonight was done right. The words should have comforted him. They didn't. Rhett stared through the glass panel into the treatment area, where Kepler lay on a padded table with an IV line taped to one front leg. His big body looked wrong under clinic lights, smaller, somehow. Mortal in a way Rhett hated seeing. Iris stood suddenly. "I need air." Rhett thought she meant to leave. His body prepared to stop her before his mind could remind it that stopping people was not the same as helping them. Marlene's voice rose in memory. "She is not a rescue drill." He forced his hands to stay open. "Door's there," he said. Iris looked at him, surprised by the permission, then walked outside. Through the window, he saw her stand under the clinic awning, shoulders shaking once in the cold. She did not run. She did not vanish into the street. She only pressed both palms to her face and bent forward like someone trying to hold herself together without making noise. Rhett looked away to give her that much. When Iris came back in, her eyes were red, but dry. "I should have checked the bag," she said. "I should have kept Kepler out of a room with a stranger's things." "That doesn't make it not my fault." "No," Rhett said. "It makes it not only yours." She sat down slowly. Neither of them said forgiveness. The word would have been too large and too early. Instead, they sat under the fluorescent hum with the packet between them and let responsibility become something shared without becoming easier. At 5:10, Marlene arrived with 2 paper cups of coffee and a coat over her pajamas under the burgundy parka. She handed 1 cup to Iris first. "That's terrible coffee," she said. "Drink it anyway." Iris took it with both hands. "You didn't have to come." "I know." Marlene sat across from them and looked through the glass at Kepler. Her face softened in a way Rhett rarely saw. "Still with us?" "Responding," Rhett said. "Then we work with that." Later, Deputy Colin called. Roads were still partly closed, but the Wenatchee Housing Office had agreed to hold Iris's appointment another few days if Marlene confirmed weather delay. Colin also offered to check whether any motel vouchers were available if the rescue room became complicated. Iris listened to Rhett repeat the message, then said, "I don't want anyone bending rules for me." Marlene sipped her awful coffee. "Extensions for weather are not rule bending. They are what rules are for when used by people with brains." That earned the smallest sound from Iris. Not a laugh, but close enough to change the room. Near morning, Lena allowed them back one at a time. Rhett went first. Kepler lifted his head a few inches when Rhett touched the edge of the table. His notched ear twitched. His eyes were tired but present. "You scared the hell out of me," Rhett whispered. Kepler breathed out through his nose and dropped his muzzle against Rhett's wrist. When Rhett came out, Iris was standing. "You should go in," he said. Her face tightened. "He won't want me there." "He's a dog," Rhett said. "He doesn't do blame the way we do." Iris entered the treatment room like a person approaching a church after breaking something sacred. She stopped beside the table, careful not to touch the IV line. Kepler opened his eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. His tail moved once. Not much. Just enough to shift the blanket. Iris covered her mouth with one hand. Behind the glass, Rhett felt something in his chest, loosen and hurt at the same time. Lena came to stand beside him. She caught it fast. She brought it in. She knew what mattered. Rhett watched Iris speak softly to Kepler. No performance, no plea for absolution. Lena added, "I could use someone who knows animals well enough to notice small changes. Not today, not as charity, but maybe a supervised cleaning shift when things settle." Rhett looked at her. Lena shrugged. "People are not only the worst hour you meet them in." When they left the clinic, after sunrise, Kepler stayed behind for monitoring. Iris carried the packet in a sealed plastic bag Lena had given her. Rhett carried Kepler's empty collar. At the truck, Iris stopped. "If you want me gone, say it clearly." Rhett looked at the collar in his hand, then at the pale morning snow. "I want you to come back to the rescue room," he said. 3 days, like the plan. Marlene helps with the address. You make your calls. We do this correctly." Iris breathed in, shaky but steadying. And Kepler? We come back when Lena calls. She nodded. For the first time, she climbed into the truck without looking like she was entering a trap. Not because everything was forgiven, because no one had asked her to disappear. Kepler came home 2 days later with shaved fur on one front leg and instructions longer than Rhett liked. Small meals, limited walks, follow-up blood work, no treats from pockets. No access to bags, coats, tool benches, trash cans, or anything a dog might decide was food, because humans were careless enough to leave it within reach. Rhett taped the list to the shop refrigerator. Iris read it twice. Dogs don't read warning labels, she said. I know. No, she said, touching the paper lightly. I mean, people forget that until the dog pays for it. Rhett did not argue. Outside, the town had returned to its polished winter brightness. Snow flashed under morning sun. Roof lines dripped. Tourists came back with cameras and clean boots. Kepler moved through that brightness slowly, wearing his green harness, his tail lower than usual, but still moving when Iris walked beside him. She carried a small thermos of warm water and a towel folded over one arm. Not because Rhett asked, because she had begun making herself useful in ways no one had assigned. That afternoon, Marlene drove Iris to the community office to sign for a temporary mailing address. Rhett offered to go, then stopped when Marlene looked at him over the roof of her car. I wasn't going to talk for her, he said. Then practice not going. Iris heard that and, for once, smiled without hiding it. The smile did something inconvenient to Rhett's chest. Not romance, not relief, something quieter. The feeling of watching a person step back into their own outline. At the office, Iris signed her own forms. At Cascade's Animal Emergency, Dr. Lena gave her a supervised cleaning shift 2 days later. Not a job, not salvation. 4 paid hours, disinfecting kennels, logging supply counts, and learning where everything belonged. Lena watched from behind steel-rimmed glasses and corrected her once about dilution ratios. Iris corrected herself without flinching. By the end of the shift, Lena wrote another date on a sticky note and handed it over. Don't be late. I won't. That wasn't encouragement. It was a condition. I understood it that way. Lena almost smiled. The harder part came with housing. Etta Bellamy owned the laundromat 2 streets behind the bakery, a narrow building that smelled of detergent, hot lint, and quarters warmed by machines. She was 64, thin as a broom handle, with square glasses and silver curls cut short around a face that had no patience for emotional theater. Marlene made the introduction, then sat back and let Iris speak. Etta had a studio above the laundromat. Small, drafty near the window, clean enough. Available for 30 days at reduced rent in exchange for weekend laundry sorting and closing help, paid separately and written down. No vague favors, Etta said, tapping a pencil against her blue ledger. Vague favors make people resentful. Iris looked at the ledger, then at the stairs, leading up to the studio. What if I can't stay after 30 days? Then you'll know in writing before you're in trouble. That answer seemed to matter. Rhett waited outside by the truck with Kepler. He wanted to pay the rent. The thought came fast, clean, almost comfortable. Then he saw Iris through the laundromat window, sitting across from Etta, reading the terms line by line. He kept his wallet in his pocket. Later, back at the shop, June Haskell crossed the street with a paper bag, and less confidence than usual. I brought bread, she said. Iris was helping Rhett roll up an extension cord. She looked at the bag, then at June. That's kind. June swallowed. Flour dust marked one cheek. I was unkind first. No one rescued her from the truth. Iris tied off the cord. Yes. June nodded, as if accepting a bill she had earned. I put coffee vouchers at the counter, for anyone who needs one. No questions. June nodded. Iris studied her. That's better than bread, she said. June looked almost hurt, then almost relieved. I'll leave both. After she went, Rhett said, You didn't have to give her anything. I didn't. I gave her a direction. The words stayed with him. That evening, Marlene found Rhett alone in the yard, while Kepler slept inside on a blanket Iris had folded too neatly. "You're doing it again," Marlene said. "What?" "Trying to make her recovery prove something about yours." Rhett's hand closed around the compass keychain in his pocket. "I'm not." Marlene waited. The silence stretched until he hated it enough to tell the truth. "I missed Mason," he said. "After we got out, he was living in his truck for months. I didn't know until someone else found him half frozen outside Missoula." Marlene's face softened, but her voice did not. "Iris is not Mason." "I know. Knowing isn't the same as acting like it." Rhett looked toward the rescue room window. Iris was inside, writing something in her small notebook. Her own handwriting. Her own plan. "What do I do then?" "Hold the door," Marlene said. "Don't stand in it." The next morning, Iris found an old reflective rescue vest hanging in the shop and laid it on the workbench beside Kepler's medication schedule. "We should teach this," she said. Rhett looked up from a snowblower carburetor. "Teach what?" "What almost killed him. What almost killed me. Cold exposure, emergency numbers, dry socks, xylitol, human meds, antifreeze, generator fumes. The things people don't know until something goes wrong." Rhett stared at the vest. "I don't do public talks." "I didn't say you had to perform." Kepler, moving slowly but with purpose, came from his blanket and rested his muzzle on the edge of the vest. Iris looked at the dog, then at Rhett. Rhett sighed. "That's not fair." "No," Iris said. "That's useful." And for once, Rhett could not tell the difference. Saturday morning arrived clear and cold, the kind of cold that made every sound sharper. Boots on packed snow, coffee poured into paper cups, the metal click of folding tables opening in Rhett's yard. By 9, the repair shop no longer looked like a place where machines came to be fixed. It looked like a small winter station, built by people who had finally admitted they needed one another. Gavin Rourke brought rescue blankets, road flares, and a map of closed routes. Colin set orange cones near the driveway, so no one blocked emergency access. Marlene arranged dry socks, hand warmers, and printed shelter numbers into neat stacks. Doctor. Lena placed a laminated sheet on one table. Common household dangers for dogs. June arrived, carrying bread. Quieter than usual. Etta Bellamy came last with a box of washed gloves from the laundromat and complained about the ice all the way to the table, which everyone understood was her version of volunteering. Iris stood near the edge of the yard with her hands in the pockets of a second-hand caramel coat. She had a key now, not to Rhett's room, to the small studio above Etta's laundromat. She kept touching it through her pocket, not because she feared losing it, but because part of her still needed proof that it was real. Kepler stood beside her in his green harness. The shaved patch on his leg was still visible. Around his neck was a brick-red scarf Iris had repaired from an old piece of wool. He looked less like a working dog than a survivor who had earned the right to move slowly. Rhett saw more people than he expected. Shop owners, lodge workers, drivers, older residents who lived alone, dog owners with leashes wrapped around gloved fists. No crowd large enough to feel theatrical, just enough to matter. He hated public speaking. Iris knew it. She handed him a note card. "What's this?" "Not a speech," she said. "Just the order. Cold exposure, car kits, generator safety." Then Lena. Then Marlene. "You wrote me an escape route." "I wrote you a map." That made him look at her. She did not smile, but her eyes were steady. So Rhett stepped in front of the first table and began. He spoke plainly. No hero voice. No old war gravity. He talked about dry socks in a glove compartment, a blanket in every car, keeping exhaust pipes clear, not running generators in garages, calling for help before confusion set in. He told them cold did not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looked like someone insisting they were fine because pride stayed warm longer than fingers did. No one laughed at that. Then Lena explained xylitol, antifreeze, human painkillers, chocolate, and why a label could be as important as a symptom. She did not mention Iris. She did not need to. Marlene spoke after her, voice firm enough to cut through the cold. "If you see someone outside in dangerous weather," she said, "do not film them to prove you care. Ask first. Offer choices. Call the right services. Warmth is help. Control is not." That sentence moved through the yard and stayed there. A man near the back, gray beard tucked into a ski jacket, raised a hand. "How do you know who really needs help?" The question was not cruel. That made it harder. Iris looked down at Kepler. He leaned lightly against her leg, not pushing, just present. She stepped forward. "Sometimes you don't," she said. People turned. Iris kept her hands in her coat pockets. "Sometimes the person who needs help will be rude, or quiet, or say no 3 times. Sometimes they won't look grateful enough to make you comfortable. That doesn't mean you ignore your own safety. It means you don't make your kindness depend on them performing pain correctly." The yard went still. Rhett looked at her and understood that this was not the woman from the bus stop anymore. Or maybe she had always been this woman, and the rest of them were only now standing close enough to see it. After the talk, people took handouts. June handed coffee vouchers to Marlene without making a speech. Colin helped an older man program emergency numbers into his phone. Lena corrected a dog owner who thought a little gum could not matter. Etta made 3 people promise to return her box. By noon, the yard had emptied. Iris did not go back to the rescue room. She went to Etta's laundromat. Rhett drove her there with Kepler in the back seat, but he did not carry her bags upstairs until she asked for the heavy one. At the studio door, she took out the key herself. The room was small. 1 window, 1 bed, 1 chipped table. Heat clanking through an old radiator. Iris stood inside it for a long moment. "It's not much," Rhett said. She turned the key in her palm. "It opens from my side." He had no answer to that. Late afternoon found Rhett walking Kepler along the old route past the bus shelter. The dog was slow, but stubborn. Snow flashed under the streetlights as evening came down. At the shelter, Kepler stopped to sniff the bench. A cardboard box sat there. Inside were wool socks, protein bars, hand warmers, a few folded numbers for Marlene's office and the animal emergency clinic, and a small note in careful handwriting. "If you're cold, take what you need. No explanation required." Rhett knew Iris's handwriting. He did not say her name. Kepler nosed the edge of the box, then looked up at him. Rhett stood in the falling light, one hand resting on the dog's warm back. For years, he had believed rescue meant reaching someone before the worst happened. Now, he understood another part. Sometimes rescue meant leaving something behind, so the next person did not have to be found half frozen before anyone noticed. The town lights came on, gold against the snow. Kepler breathed beside him, and for the first time in a long while, Rhett did not feel like he was standing guard over the past. He was standing beside a door someone else had opened. Sometimes, the miracle is not a door opening all at once. Sometimes, it is a warm room with a lock on the inside. A dog who stays close without asking for anything. A stranger who chooses not to walk away, and one small act of kindness left behind for the next person in the cold. This story reminds us that real healing does not always look dramatic. It often begins when someone is given safety without shame, help without control, and enough hope to take one more step. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen a small act of kindness change someone's life? Subscribe for more stories about loyalty, grace, and the quiet ways hope finds us. May peace find you wherever you are tonight, and may you never forget how much one gentle act can matter.